Good morning, Rabbi Sai. Almost as good as last night. Wow. I got to show you this. Here, just two pictures. I just arrived in Chicago, a little bit of a delay and everything, and so it's one of those days. Not a lot of sleep, but riding on unbelievable hergeshim. It was just, to be there is to believe it. Be'ezer Hashem, the plan is one day in Chicago. One day here, we're going to have 600-700 people in one building giving a shiur. It might take a week or two, but we're going to do it. I'm not giving up. Not giving up on the Hamilton. It was insane. And then I have to go get a COVID test now because I'm flying on Sunday, and hopefully the COVID doesn't catch on that quickly. You know, chances are after shaking 600 people's hands, they say this is machlokes. The lowest count that I heard was 650. It went up to 800. So then you have, the conservatives and but there was 675, no question. I even counted here in this picture. You see right over here in this picture, there's 40 people standing in the back. So I don't know, there's at least 100 people standing. And then you have the second floor also, the mezzanine. It was a lot of people, and some people come in, they go out. Baruch Hashem, was a tremendous Kiddush Hashem. Thank you tremendously for the chizuk. No emails. I have emails, but they're on my phone, which we're using for Zoom. People said what a tremendous chizuk and this and that. Maybe we'll get to some of them. The Koil sponsor. It's Erev Shabbos. I really appreciate that the Olam came out. I know it's late, and people have things to do, and there's a lot of people on Zoom. Baruch Hashem. I said, Lili Nishmas, my mother. Rus Bas Mordechai, whose yard side it is this week. Get that mafta ready for me, Marty. Little Musaf. The once a year Musaf. So, the co-sponsor, anonymous for Shidduchim. Parnasah by the Lock and Lebovic families, Lakewood in Jersey, because Torah is the best segulah. Parnasah Nisan is sponsored by Yoli, who's there last night, drove in from Lakewood. Lzchus, his father-in-law, mother-in-law, sister. That's what he told me to say, I hope. Ahron Fraiman, Lzchus, parnasah, and siyata, dishmaya, and continue Hatzlacha, to Eli. Parnasah as a Zechus. He's texting me, he doesn't get the hint. Same guy, I told him not to call when we start shiur. Calls and texts. He thinks I'm going to stop shiur now in the middle. I'll read his text. Okay. As a Zechus, please stop texting me. Please stop calling. We're in the middle of a shiur. It's Erev Shabbos. I got to get I didn't tell you on the phone, but I need to get a COVID test and do some other things and pack. Anonymous says, HaKaras HaTov to Hashem as a Zechus for continued health and bracha. La shirus godel b'karoi v'latzlocha kol ma shani yoiseh. Rebelli didn't do a get over here in New York. No, I didn't do many shout outs, didn't do get over here, didn't do emails. There's a lot of other things going on, a different time. All right, so I do need to warn the Olam. Once in a while, I do a warning. Parental guidance shiur. It's one of the famous dapim in Shas. We do pride ourselves. We have a lot of young children that watch the shiur. So every parent is on their own, but I do need to throw that out there. At the same time, I'll be trying to use language that you might have to use a little bit of your head to understand what I'm saying. I might not use, I'm of the opinion, not of the opinion. I prefer to use a little bit more subtle language. Most magid shurim don't, but because of the amount of children that we have and things like that, so I'll try. I'll do my best. But anyway, it says the Gemara, Tani Rebbe Chia. So we learned in the Mishnah that Yibum works whether it's b'shaygeg, b'mezid, b'aynas, b'ratzin. And then the Mishnah says, Afilu hu shaygeg v'imezida. Even if one of them is shaygeg, or one of them is mezid. Says the Gemara, we're not holding there. Tani Rebbe Chia. Afilu shneim shaygegim, shneim mezidim, shneim anusim. If both of them was a complete aynas. Says the Gemara, I want to understand the situation. How do you force somebody into relations? If the non-Jew forced him, there's a famous yisoid in Shas, ein oinest le'erva. There's no such thing. When it comes to relations, a person cannot claim, a male can't claim that he had nothing to do with it. There's a physical change on his body that occurs only if he has the right mindset. So nobody can force that mindset. You can't put a gun to the guy's head. It must have happened with his intent. So how could you say that he's a oinus? Why is it a oinus? If a person put a gun to himself, doesn't mean that his body's ready. Says Gemara, Ela biyoshin. His body was ready when he was sleeping, and he wasn't aware of what was going on. She forced himself, let's say. Says the Gemara, but that's also not considered a good yibum. V'amar Rav Yehuda, yoshin loy kana yivimtai. It's interesting because we said yibum works in almost every situation, in a shaygig and a oinus. But one thing you have to have is a head. You have to have a brain. You have to know what you're doing. And when you're sleeping, you don't know what you're doing. That's Rashi's pshat. La bardas. You lost your brain. You're like a cotton. You don't have das. Taisa says maybe we can understand it a little bit better. You don't have kavana. You can understand it a little differently. The point is that when a person is sleeping, he can't say that he took action and he was mekayim a mitzvah of yibum when he had no idea where he was and what happened. Says the Gemara, Elo benitka. This is one of the most famous, unfortunately, heichatimsas in all of Shas. The person fell off the roof and he was mekayim the mitzvah of yibum. Obviously, it might be very difficult to actually happen, but like many cases in the Gemara, and we'll see later on cases that are nothing to do with this case, but just in general, the idea of the last thing we might learn today, if we're lucky, we could get there. A guy married 5 women, and each one was a sister to the other one, but one was through the father to the mother. Obviously, this never happened, but we're learning halacha, the idea, the concept. Guy, his body was ready. Let's say he was going to be with his wife, and he fell off the roof. Whatever that means. Because don't forget, ha'ara also works. Miktsas, it doesn't have to be a hole. Okay, fine. If this actually happened, so typically we have nezik tsar ripusheves boishes. Nezik tsar ripusheves boishes. 5 things. So we're going to remove the last thing, boishes. In other words, if you cause damage to somebody, so you have to pay for the pain, for the monetary loss, the lost wages, that sort of thing, medical bills, and for embarrassment. So embarrassment, the Gemara is going to explain, doesn't apply over here because you have to have kavanah to embarrass somebody, and there was no kavanah. He fell off the roof. He's worried about his own life. Now, he obviously didn't try to embarrass somebody. In this unbelievable case, so once again, you see mefurish that if a person is sleeping or he fell off the roof, not sleeping, nitka, he fell off the roof, you don't have the das. You didn't have the das, so Mela, time out. Did I skip? No. Yashin lo yukonomi vimta. If he's sleeping, no question. But over here, he was aware. He was conscious. Just, he didn't want to take action. The action happened by itself because he fell off the roof. But it doesn't work. Rabbi says it doesn't work. You're not even chayav for boishes because you didn't have kavanah. So if you didn't have kavanah, it doesn't work by Yevamos. So then once again, what does it mean that somebody forced a person to do yibum? So what happened was he had kavanah for the act. With kafasai. Okay, let's listen to Nasan again. He wants me to listen. Hold on. Let's do this live. He's probably going to yell at me. Why not? He wants to talk and we'll share. No, I have a lot of HaKaras HaTov to him. He grew the shiur like crazy. He's the one in charge of all the marketing and everything. But we said this shiur, he asked me 10 times, what time is shiur? I said 3 o'clock. Decided 3:30. I have no idea why. Besides, 3:30 here is 4:30 in New York. It's like almost Shabbos. And this is an hour and a half shiur today. No, I'm just kidding. Okay. Let's go. Zog the Gemara, you have any more messages? We'll play them all. No problem. Oh, so what happened was so we're talking about his body is ready. He was kavanah for another woman, for his own wife. With kafasi yivim to. So the Yevamos seems like she grabbed him. Okay, so that explains one case. That's if one person was a aynus, the man was a aynus, because the Yevama, she was ma'anasim, let's call it, because he was ready and she was ma'anas. But how in the world do you have two people that are aynsim? Somebody has to take action. Somebody has to be the initiator, the aggressive person, let's call it. But both of them, how are both of them aynus? So it's very simple. Okay, so that takes care of problem number one. How was he ready? He was ready because he wanted to be with his wife. And then the non-Jew took action and put them both together. And that's how you have that two people are aynus. How do you know that this idea of ha'ara works? That even the beginning of the act is also considered a full act. The Torah mitzvah. So the Torah is telling you that it's a greater mitzvah to perform yibum than chalitza. Chalitza is just belas breira. Nobody wants to do it, so you do chalitza. But it's much better, obviously, and the Torah explains why. Obviously, it goes through you. Another pshat. This is what we learn from Yevamos Yovelah. Davar acher, Yevamos Yovelah, bein b'shogig, bein b'mezid, bein ba'oines, bein b'rotzei. So I learned from Yevamos Yovelah that's even b'oines, and even b'shogig. Says the Gemara about Piktul Mitzvah. You just used up this pasuk. You can't cheat. You can't do two limudim from one word. Says the Gemara, mitzvah. You're right. The first one, mivim loyachvitz ish nafka. Says the Gemara, how do you know the mitzvah from the other part of the pasuk that we're very familiar with? Vim loyachvitz ish. If the man doesn't want to perform yibum, what does he do? Chalitza, meaning that it's only the second option. The first option is yibum. So you see that yibum is more important. So then why do I have the pasuk Yevamos Yovelah? Ben b'shogig, ben b'mezid, ben b'oines, ben b'rotzei. Tanidach, another pshat. Yevamos Yovelah kedarka. This is the regular way of doing yibum, of doing bia. That's kedarka. Well, the Kacha teaches us a big chiddush that even though shaloi kedarka, the unnatural way, which you can never have children that way, so you're not really l'hakim shem l'achav. You're nevertheless you're kaina. It works. V'yibeim bio goymeres bavein kesav ushtar goymer ba. So the word v'yibeim, as you can see maybe in the green over here, that yibem, it's a combination of the word v'yibem ma. There's a hey at the end, and now we're going to learn something else that you can do bal karcha. But the vav yud beis mem teaches us that there's nothing that acquires this yivama besides actual yibum. You can't do maimer, you can't do shtar, doesn't work. As we discussed many times, it has some sort of effect, but it doesn't acquire as a wife. V'yibma and the hey, bal karcha. Even if she's not willing, it works, unless we had a few cases with a mukashchin, and according to Taisus, any good excuse, she's out of it. Okay. Davar acher, another pshat, Yevamos Yovelah, ben b'shogig, ben b'mezid. Va piktel kedarka. But you already used up the word for natural yibum. Ahom malakim malachiv shame, like I explained. In order to create a name for your brother, it has to be something that's roi to give birth. So it has to be kedarka. So I don't need a special pasuk to tell me that kedarka is kaina. And therefore the pasuk is only coming to tell us the other chiddush that you don't have to have the right intent. It's be b'shaygig, b'mezid, b'ain b'ain is ben brotzen. I don't know if you heard the Torah Evan I said yesterday. Torah Evan says certain mitzvahs you don't have to have intent. If that's the only way to do the mitzvah, and this object, talking about the Yevama as an object, but like a carbon Pesach, like a Yevama, there's no other woman in the world that you could be making shein la'achiv. So in that woman, says the Torah Evan, you don't need kavana. Gufa, Omer Rav Yehuda, Yashin, if a person is sleeping, like honey b'yivimtai, Domakro Yevama Yavaleh, Adam mechavin la l'shem bia. He has to have kavana for bia, for an act, not specifically her, but an act. So much so. So let me ask you a crazy, crazy, wild question. And I'm not being meshuggah here. I'm taking this from the Gemara. What if a person has an unfortunate kavana to be with an animal? Is that a kavana? Is that enough kavana to be koina this yevama and saying, oh, he had kavana for bia? You say, yeah. What do you say? Dailam says, yeah. Dailam is right. Maybe they peaked. V'atanya bein bein yoshin adam chamishem bia. So, but it says mefurish that he could be sleeping, and he's also yaitse. In other words, he didn't have kavana for bia. Ema bein eira bein yishena. We don't care about her consciousness. We care about his. He has to be awake. V'atanya, but this is a checkmate. Ben hu bein yoshin hu. You can't try to change the havara and the grammar. It's not going to work because it says him and her sleeping and awake. So that's it. It says mafurish that even if he is sleeping, it works. The yibum works. But then ben hu, ben yoshin hu, ben erehi, ben sheni. The famous Gemara many times in Shas that we're talking about a guy that dozed off. So in other words, he's not asleep where he doesn't have kavanah at all, and that we're saying it doesn't work. But he's not awake where he has kavanah. So he's in the in-between stage, whatever that means. To me, every time I learn this Gemara, I don't think I said this in shiur, maybe I did, but the machshava came to me again, so I have to say it. It reminds me when I was a child on a sleepover at my friend's house, and we used to schmooze till we thought it's like 12 in the morning, but it was like probably 8:30 at night. And your eyes are like closing and your friend is still talking to you. And all of a sudden you find yourself saying things that don't even make sense. You know what I'm saying? That's the stage. That's awake and not awake, sleeping but not sleeping. It's like, you know what I'm talking about? Not hypnotized. It's just, you think you're awake and you start saying, you're saying stuff. You're not there. You're an anesthesiologist. You know what I'm talking about. Is there such a stage? What is it called?
Predominant delta wave.
Predominant delta wave. Predominant delta wave stage 2, says Dr. Martin Dalber, Rabbi Yosef Tzvi, not Yosef Tzvi, something Tzvi. Moshe Tzvi. Because Yosef wouldn't be good. That's your son. Okay. Amar Rashi, nim v'lei nim, tir v'lei tir. Nim means asleep, tir means he's awake. So he's asleep but not asleep. He's awake but not awake. He going to korelei v'ani, like they call out to him and he answers. He doesn't know. Where are the keys to the car? I have no idea. But they say, did you put the keys on the shelf? But if you ask him where the key, he's in a different world. So that is the stage that he is kaina. But if he's completely asleep, he's not kaina. The Yevamos. Gufa. Omer Rabba nafal min hagag v'nitka. If a person fell off the roof and he's miyabim the Yevama, chai bar b'advarim. Ubivimta leikana, however, it doesn't work in Yibum. Benezek, what do you chayv? Benezek, damages, what does that mean? So, damages always works with how you sell a slave in the market. So if you have a bsula, she's worth more to your slave. You have, let's say, a bsula shivcha, she's worth more to your slave. If you want to give your slave a wife, you'd prefer this. It's worth that, I know, whatever it is, there's a certain value to psulim, and that's what you have to pay. Then you have tsar, that's pain. The pain that a person has, you have to pay for that. B'sheves. Also, I could defer to Dr. Dauber. You probably testified a lot about pain and stuff like that, no? So how does it work in American law?
Very subjective. Very subjective.
But there is a concept you pay.
Always a payment for pain.
There's always a payment for pain. So a person says he's 1 to 10, he's 9, and he has it for a year.
And he convinces a jury, then he's going to get more money than if he says it's a 7.
But he has to convince the jury that he's a 9.
I believe in the United Kingdom that it's a fixed value.
Which is not fair to the person suffering because not everybody suffers the same way. But just out of curiosity, what's the most you've ever seen somebody receive for pain? Could it be in the millions for pain, or it's a combination of...
Yes, families have received money for pain because of the suffering.
But literally millions?
Millions.
Millions of dollars in pain. Wow.
This is Chicago.
I hear. Okay. Chicago's different. Okay. Zog the Gemara. Benezik, B'tzar, B'sheves. The medical bills. Ripoy. Sheves, I think, is sitting around loss of wages. And ripoy is refuah, which would be medical bills. Aval boishes, loy mechayev. The fifth thing, you're not chayev. Domamar. Ein chayev al boishes hajis kaven. You have to have kavana to embarrass somebody. Wow. Unbelievable. I just had an argument with somebody. Somebody called me to ask me mechila for embarrassing me in public. So I said, no, what's pshat? He said, you embarrassed me first. You said something that people inferred from that. I said, but I didn't think I embarrassed you. And I'm thinking about it right now, today. Not joking. In the airport, this Gemara. Unbelievable. Boishes, I'm just saying to that person, Boishes, it says in the Gemara, right to me. You have to have kavana to embarrass somebody. I'm not saying that person wasn't embarrassed. It could be mechila. I probably do have to ask, because now we see from other Gemaras, who was there? A puppet's lip was split, and Rebbeinu thought he's laughing at him, and he killed him. But it was who? Rav Kahana says this bacher. What's your name? Yochanan Posner. We got a Talmud Chacham now. How old are you? 13. And you know this Gemara, Rav Kahana. Where is it? One of the Bavas. You sure it's Rav Kahana? Baba Kama and Rav Kahana? Galus. I had to run away. Okay, you see, Halavai, I had a memory like you. Zogi Gemara. Yeah. Omar Rava is Kavin Latia. Actually, Kavin. Fine. I'm saying in terms of payment. Mechila, you have to ask Mechila. If you embarrass somebody by mistake, you had no idea, but you embarrassed that person. It seems from the Gemara, you always have to ask Mechila, even on a mistake on your part. But payment is when you intend to embarrass. You walk over to the guy, you smack him in public in the face, and you intended to do it, then you have to pay for busha. A person had intent to have a relation with the wall. So that's not a relation. That's not kavana for bia, so v'tir b'yivimtoi, and then he happened to do it with his yevama, like kana, because that's not the right kavana. However, this is what you were all saying, latiach bebehema. He had kavana for an improper relation, but nevertheless it was a relation. V'tir b'yevama kana. That's enough to make a kinyan in a yevama. Do kamachav l'shem bia ba'ilam. He had intent to have some sort of bia, doesn't matter what, and that's enough. Echad Ma'ara. Did I say before Gufa? Hold on, so it was a mistake. I think we got to take it back. Yeah, I think I explained it not immediately before as how do you know Ara? Nothing to do. The whole sugi is talking about just how do you know the idea of bein b'shogi bein b'mezid by yibum. Okay, so here goes this sugi. Just ignore all preparations on plane don't count. Echad Amara. Menayin, you have to understand, I got home to the hotel at 2:00 after not eating the entire, literally fasted the whole day. shaking all these people's hands. At some point, I was squished like a sardine. They were coming from all directions. I got to the hotel, went to sleep after 3 o'clock. I was already in a car to the airport at 7 something, 7:30. So when do you prepare? After the whole day yesterday preparing for that day's shiur, what do you prepare? Okay. In LaGuardia somewhere, on a plane. I don't do well on planes because the oxygen level like knocks me out. I have to fight the. Okay, Abba Rava, you'll help me out. How do you know the idea of miktas bia? Let's call it the beginning of it is enough to be counted as the whole maisa and your kind of yevama. Shenemar. So the Gemara is going to bring 3 psukim. Let's see if I can do this from here. Yeah, okay. We're going to get a pasuk from Nida, a pasuk from Yeshach, and a pasuk of Achoisav. So it says like this. Where do we see this idea? Even the word is interesting. The word is taken from the Torah here. Dava means a Nida. V'gila is hervasa. Es mekayra hera. So it uses lashon hera. So you can. You're over on Nida even with a miktas bia. Okay, very good. So the Torah specified a Nida, but how do you know that applies to other arayos? That it will work, let's say, by Yevama, by others. Just say, okay, it says by Nida, so it applies everywhere. A man who's with a Nida becomes tummy just like a Nida. He becomes tummy 7 days and has the same halachas as her. The whole thing. So she has power to give over that tumah. Therefore, even just touching makes you're over. It's a very high level of iser, of tumah, of iser. Okay, so going to the next pasuk. So I just put over here, if you're looking at the chart 2, under the word nida it says metama. So I'm just, in one word, want to capture what is nida different than everything else. Because each one of the 3 psukim that we're going to bring has something that is different, and maybe perhaps you can't learn from it because it has a special thing to it. And then the Gemara is going to do one of the famous tzad shavas, take 2 out of the 3 and say, okay, you're right, this one has this special thing, this one has this special thing. What's the common denominator of the 2? They aser arayis, behara, just a miktas bia, and memela, so too yibum. And we're going to try from nida and eshesach, and nida and achisav. Finally, we're going to go nida and eshesach. Okay, that's the sugya. It's a limud sugya. It's a classic. Once you know one, you know them all. Says the Gemara, no, we're going to learn from the red guy. Eshesach. We know what Eshesach is because that's the whole Yevamos is Eshesach. It's your sister-in-law, your brother's wife. It doesn't say anything about her, but it says she's like a nida. It says the Gemara, what? She's a nida, literally a nida. Elo kin nida. The Torah is saying she's like a nida, ma nida b'hara. That we know from nida that the hara works. And I'm going to learn everything else from Eshesach. Says the Gemara, but I can't learn everything else from Eshesach. Eshesach has a special thing. Mal Eshesach can be elderly rabbis. A person can get married and get married to 1,000,000 women if he wants. 1,000. Yeah, good luck. I heard that whisper. Okay. So you're going to another pasuk. Your aunt, your father's sister, and your mother's sister, aunts. So it says over there, over there also uses the lashon hara. So the first one says Eshesach is through marriage. Now it's something that comes on its own. You didn't ask for it. Over here, Shekin Isra Abba Melov. Says the Gemara, the classic. Don't get nervous. It's very simple stuff. If you look at each one individually, look at the green one, it has a special chumrah, tuma. You look at this one, balbeila. So we have to do a common denominator. No, sorry. You cannot learn from one individual one. So learn from 2 out of the 3. Sometimes we learn even from 3, but now 2 is enough. Which 2 do you want to pick, says the Gemara? And of course, the Gemara is not going to go directly to the right one because, no, seriously, it doesn't flow well. You can't go to the right answer right away because then you don't have. I need to eliminate the Gemara. The Gemara doesn't ask questions. The Gemara wants to teach you how to eliminate the problems. So it's in a question-answer format. But let's go to the one that is not going to work. We're going to knock out all the ones that don't work, and the final one is going to be the one that works. Okay. So I have a slide for that. Did I just go down? Are there arrows there now? Okay. So I'm learning from the red and blue. Eishes ach and achois av. Both of them, we know the idea of hara, that the beginning of bio is enough to be kaina, to be asur, to whatever. Malahanoch. So I'll tell you, but the 2 of them together also have a problem. Mal shekin isurim mishum she'er. Both of these, Eishes ach and achois av, are both asur because of a relationship. What about somebody else? Another isur that's not because of a relationship. You can't learn from here. Nida, for instance. I'm just throwing it. Nida is not because of a relationship. She has a isur. She has a tumah. Okay, so now we're going to go to the next one. How about this one? The green and the blue. 2 of them together will teach us, let's say, that Yibam also, hara is kaina. The 2 of them, Nida, the Isser just occurred without her asking for it. So too, Achoisav. Ella, Taisim Nida of Eishes Ach. So finally, Gemara says, we're going to go to here, the green and the red, Nida and Eishes Ach. And the Gemara explains, the Ma Parchas, what's your question? The My Parchas, there are no questions on this. There's nothing special about these 2 together. There's no common denominator to say that they're different than everybody else. But I do have a question. Now, we're going to see in a second that the Gemara doesn't like the lashon so much. The question is a good one, but not in its wording right now. Anida, when the one that put the Isra on it is still around, there's no heter. Eishesach, when the husband is around, there's no heter. If her husband divorces her, she becomes mutter, even though the husband is still alive. Let's fix your question a little bit. What? Afterwards, there is a heter. If the dam, let's talk about a nida and her dam. Dam goes away, she's still usher. For how long? 7 days. Nida b'yoyim milsa. Nun Amud Beis. Sponsored by Moshe Horn in honor of Jolly Joe Kraus and family. It's embarrassing yesterday because there's a lot of people in the hall, and I said this in honor of Jolly Joe Kraus and family, and a ton of people started laughing, and I realized they never went to the shiur before. They have no idea. They're all new guys. And anonymously, Lzchus Moshe Yaakov Ben Shoshana Beruchnius and Gashmias. Eishes Ach Bebanim Talim Rachmana. It's not totally in the Eishes Ach. It's totally in whether or not he has children. Says the Gemara. Ela Parachochi. This is what your question is. The one who created the Isser doesn't make the mutter. The one who made her Isser, who's that? The husband. He gives her a get and is matter her. So this is it. This is final. Let's remember this Rabbi Yoina because it's called Rabbi Yoina. Amar Rabbi Yoina, v'teimer Rabbi Yishu Amar Krok, Yikol Asher Yaseh. The This is a famous pasuk that all the arayis are in one. So they all have a hekesh. You learn a hekesh. Now I want you to think about this for a second. We learn from nida that what? Ma nida bahara, afkol bahara. Just like nida is over be'isr, just the beginning is isr. You don't need a full bia, afkol bahara. So what did I gain? I asked you a question. You told me before you have a tzad shava, and I said nida is different because she's metama bayala. And now you're telling me I'm learning it from a hekesh from nida. So I'll say mala nida she came metama is bayala. What did you gain by going to hekesh? The answer is very simple. You can't answer. You can't ask any questions on a hekesh. A hekesh is solid. Hekesh is not logic. A hekesh is this is next to this, and they share the same halacha. When you tell me logic, you tell me tzad shava. Tzad shava is we're learning from nida and this one. They seem the same, so they should all have the same halacha. They share a common thread, and therefore all are. No, they don't share the common thread because this one is powerful. This one is this one. Once you go in logic, I'll break up your logic. I'll throw out something that ruins your logic. When it comes to hekesh, hukshu kol arayis kol nida. There is nothing you could break. You can't ask any questions. You're right, nida is very different than everything else. If you're right, it doesn't matter. If you're wrong, it doesn't matter. The bottom line is you can't ask any questions. It's a hekesh. Okay. Sometimes you're saying zer shav, it has to be mufna not to ask questions, but same idea. Oh. So what are you telling me? That you're learning from the green one. So if so, red and blue is completely extra. The fact that it talks about a ra in them, we need to understand why. Says the Gemara, look at the Ravuna, Remez Livam, and Torah Benayin. How do you see the concept of Yibum? In the Torah, Benayin? It's a mafurish pasuk. I don't need a remez, I don't need a hint. How do you know that if the husband divorces her, she's still awesome? Hi Svari, it's logic. Since the Torah says she's permitted after her husband dies, the Torah is telling me, basically the Torah says, you only become mutter to this woman if her husband dies without children. Meaning before that, she's asur. Perhaps yeah. How do you know? Maybe what the Torah is trying to tell me is that if the husband dies without children, there's a special mitzvah called Yibum. But if the husband is still alive, it's not a mitzvah. But if you feel like marrying, you could. Don't ask me, don't bring me a right from the fact that the Torah says you should be miyabimer if he dies without children. That's to tell me that it's a special mitzvah. Not because to tell me that if he's still alive, it's asur. Inami, lachem is bala in, b'chayi bala loy, v'lav ba miklal asay asay, but it's only an asay. Omakra, and therefore I need a special pasuk to tell me that it's not an asay. That what? Again, the same question we had before. Ela kenida manida avapi sheyesh laheter la'achar mikein mishas isur b'kares. So b'kitzur, the pasuk is coming to tell me that it's not an essay; it's an isur kares. Aveishus achnami avapi sheyesh laheter la'achar mikein b'chayibalo b'kares. So that's why I need the pasuk to tell me that there's a kares. Ela hara. Okay, so we just answered the red one. What about the blue one? Why does it talk about a ra there? If I'm learning, again, question. If I learn Yibum and all arayis that the concept of a ra works, and how do I know it? I know it from Nida. Then why does the Torah say it by a chayisav? Says the Gemara, look at the Bible, Ravina and Rava, because Ravina has Rava. Hamar beZachar ma'u. How about Mishkav Zachar, just one moment? Is that also? Bezachor mishkav isha ksiva. What do you mean? Of course, the Torah compares it to being with a woman. So whatever by a woman we said hara is kaina, so one moment is asur. So to by zachar. Ela hamar bebehema ma'u. What's the halacha by a behema? Is hara one moment also asur. Since we don't need it, again, this is a drasha sugya. So the famous concept in drasha sugya is that anytime you have a limud in a pasuk that we don't use here, if it's extra, we're going to take the limud and use it somewhere else. We don't need it by a chosaveim. The asification of the Rabbi Yoina, that Rabbi Yoina said all arayos are the same, and they all are kaina or asur bahara. So therefore, I don't need it by a chosaveim. It should say behema, but I lost my place. Yes, and therefore is going to teach us that by behema also, same thing like by humans, hara is enough to be over. So the Gemara just asks a simple question. What's a person that's with an animal, has relations with an animal, he's chayiv the highest degree, Mrs. Bezin. Behema chayiv Mrs. Bezin. He. My time chsiv lara dida gabi chayiv krisus. So then why did the Torah put his Isser in a different category called krisus? He's a higher level. Shouldn't the Torah hint to it? You don't want to say dafka b'behema, so say by something that's similar to like with a sister, whatever it is, the chayv Mrs. Bezin. It's just ish. Mrs. Bezin. Mrs. Bezin. It makes more sense to be in the same category. Says the Gemara, I did the kula krol drashasi. Here. Since the whole entire pasuk, so we have two psukim here on this chart. One is in Parshas Kedoshim, by the way, I mentioned last night. Many of the psukim that we're going to be learning are from these week's parsha. This week's Ahron Fraiman and Yisrael's Kedoshim, and next week's parsha, it's all Ahron Fraiman's Kedoshim. The bunch of dapim now. So we go back to Shul, listen to Kriyas Torah carefully, and the Gemara will pop up. Ve'ervas achois imcha v'achois avicha. This is in Eretz Yisrael this week. It's too late. I can't warn them. It's already Shabbos by them. It's almost Shacharis. Ve'ervas achois imcha v'achois avicha lo segula. Here's a pasuk about your aunt who happens to be your father or sister, and then it says in Parshas Ahron Fraiman, or it should say a little bit before. That's this week's parsha. Ervas achois avicha lo segula. I just Bekitzer, because this was 5 minutes before shiur. It also says achois imcha. The point is that all the psukim are extra. Okay, achois imcha is double and achois avicha is double. I just doubled up achois avicha. So what do you see? Once a pasuk is completely extra, I can learn things from it. So what am I learning? I did the kula krol drashasi ksibinami hamilsa drasha. So since this whole pasuk is extra, so I'm going to talk about also behema. My drasha, what I'm learning from everything, what I'm learning from this pasuk. This anya, eres achois avicha lo segula beiminohav beiminoim. It doesn't matter if eres achois avicha lo segula beiminoim, whether she's related through the father or through the mother. Ato omer beiminohav beiminoim or yeno elo minohav avilo minoim. Maybe the aunt is only an aunt that comes from the father's side, from a paternal aunt, not a maternal. V'dinu chayiv kan v'chayiv ba'choisai. Ma choisai beimina'av beimina'im. Your sister, you're not going to be with a sister, even though she's only from the mother. You share a mother, but not a father. Afkan beimina'av beimina'im. Oy klach l'derzu. Who told you to learn from your sister? Chayiv kan v'chayiv b'deidasai. You're not going to be with your aunt. An uncle could be with a niece, but a nephew cannot be with his aunt. So you see, by an aunt, it's only a paternal, not a maternal. So meichet to achois avicha has to be. It could also be from a mother. Says Gemara, well, you have an option. You can learn from a sister or from an aunt. Which one is more similar? Some Isser that comes by itself. She'ein Isser haba me'elov. Maybe you should learn relatives from the father. Says the Gemara, so that's We're just getting back to this pasuk that we said is completely extra that's on the screen. That's what we learned from Erev Zechus Avicha. Erev Zechus Imcha L'Sigal also supposed to be on the screen, but not on the screen. Beimanav Beimanayim. The top one is the one pasuk. Achos Imcha is there, but the second one not. Did I skip? Because the mishpacha comes from the father's side. I think that's not considered. Everybody knows for a fact, well, not all the time, but what's more certain? That this child is from this woman or this child is from this man? Woman. I mean, I think I saw a crazy story that these two kids got switched up at birth in Ukraine. It was like one of those places. And one went to the wealthy family, and the one that was supposed to be in the wealthy family went to and he had a terrible life. And when he discovered it 20 years later, he went to his mother, and she took him back. But the wealthy kid didn't want to go to his real mother. It was a sad situation. But they asked Rabbi Yonasan Eivshitz, I think I mentioned this before. They asked Rabbi Yonasan, I think it was Rabbi Yonasan Eivshitz. They asked him a question. They said, who do you know for certain is your parent? Your mother or your father? Your mother. Father, we don't know. So why do you have a chiyuv kibbud avayim? If your father asks you for a cup of water and your mother does, the chiyuv is for the father. First. He's a suffix, she's a vade. Go to the vade, give the cup of water to the mother. No, what do you say? If I said it before, what's the answer?
That's what I'm saying about your father.
So he said, whoever this Eli was, I think it was Rabbi Yonasan Eivshitz, that it's in the mother's covenant interest to say that we know for a fact who the father is and give him the cup first. You want to be mechaber with a cup of water, but at the same time say, oh, she was mizana with somebody else. That's not very good for her. She'd rather get the cup of water second and say, my husband, this is the guy, this is the father of this child, and give him the cup of water. That's what this kid said. Almost an Eli, like this Posner kid. Givaldik. Okay. Zog the Gemara. But because she came back dice. If it comes from a mother, we know for a fact this is hers. We don't know 100% who the real father is. Okay. Before we said that an aunt is from a father, but not from a mother. How do we know this? I said doi doi. The word doi doi. Uncle. If a person sells himself as a slave to a non-Jew, so the family has an obligation to redeem him. Who's the family? It's the father's family comes first. They have to redeem. So the the aunt is from a father, not from a mother. And how do you know over there? His family must redeem him. Boys, I have a wonderful day. Have a great Shabbos. Yishkoyach for coming. We'll see you here 10:30. 10:30 Be'ezer Hashem. And if Nitzal gets his way, 11:30.